Ladies and gentlemen and everything in between, we're back for the watch-along. If you crash an F1 car, you get the seat zingy while we wait for a few drivers to get on track and set some lap times, and also for my voice to sort itself out. Is that the right call from Mercedes? It was only announced a few hours ago that Kimi Antonelli will be driving in 2025 for the Brackley-based outfit. I don't know, but apparently his data on the short laps that he was doing was actually quite good.
I mean, yeah, these guys have probably had the deal set for at least a few weeks now. They've only just announced it now. And obviously getting Kimi in that car for, well, only like a lap and a half did show that he was able to push the car very well, with speeds around Ascari and through the first few corners much faster than what they were expecting. So you clearly see something within this young driver, of course, only just turning 18 a few months ago. Younger than us two both, so he's doing something right, and now he's got that Mercedes seat, which for 2025, if they keep this pace up, and if not improve, they could be way better and could be competing for wins.
For sure, for sure. And yeah, it wasn't ideal. I'm surprised, I think, if I'm correct in saying, George actually got out for the FP2 session, yesterday. So didn't crash the car bad enough for, them to not be able to run. So George still got some practice in, if I'm correct in saying that. Correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, looking at the times yesterday, if I do remember correctly as well, Hamilton was very quick, so were the McLarens. So it's going to be an interesting one. I want to get the timings up on my screen now just to refresh myself of the results of FP2. Yeah, Lewis Hamilton, and it's very, very close with the top 5. Obviously, it can change right now in this session, and it very much will, but still, Lewis Hamilton, the Mercedes cars are looking very quick, which I'm going to be honest, I didn't expect today.
Oscar Piastri just setting the pace there with a 120.8 on the soft tyre. Only 3 tenths faster than Russell on that medium. However, we do know there's not many corners around Monza, so tyres don't really make a difference in terms of lap time, but in terms of a longer race, we will see that difference. It's Max Verstappen. I must comment on this. It looks incredible. That Red Bull rear wing is really, really trimmed down. Obviously, for Monza, you want a low drag setup, but it looks as though someone's took a chunk out the front wing and just started eating it or something. It's really, really skinny.
Right. That's an interesting one. So, yeah, well, I mean, it's going to happen. It is Monza. It's also going to be very interesting for slipstream trains, because then obviously DRS basically becomes not useless, but a lot less effective. So are we going to see everyone really close together, especially the top 4 teams, as we've seen so far enough around other circuits, but around Monza, I remember 2021, that was just a hell of a race, with everyone following so closely. Maybe the McLarens were a little bit slower than some of the other cars, or not as fast as kind of Red Bull and Mercedes at that time, so they couldn't pull away. But could we see that with the current era of cars? I reckon it could be a very good race tomorrow, which I can't wait to see. Unfortunately, we won't be streaming that, but we will be streaming qualifying a little bit later on, which is also going to be very spectacular, as it is an incredible sight to see, with everybody going down the straights and looking for those DRS trains, and we might see yet again more people miss out on their final runs of qualifying if they do some silly manoeuvres, which I'm going to be honest, you'd think that they would have learned that by now, but I don't know, we'll see. I'm sure we'll see a few people doing their quali runs at the end of this FP3 session as well, so we'll be able to see the real pace of the other cars. Verstappen, P2, Perez P5, so they've kind of switched up a little bit, or no, switched it on a little bit, I should say, and really got to improving. I'm going to quickly look at a post that we sent yesterday for who's going to be fastest overall at the Italian Grand Prix. And it's 67% for McLaren, Red Bull 7%, Ferrari 18%, and Mercedes 7%. So people are thinking that Mercedes and Red Bull are going to be exactly the same pace, and Ferrari are going to be faster than both those teams, with McLaren just dominating. Do you agree, Zingy? Never mind. We'll go back to them in a minute. I do apologise. We'll see how that goes out. We've got a lot of cars on track, including the 2 Ferraris with their new kind of team kits, and they say new livery, although it basically looks exactly the same, which it's still absolutely fine because it is a great looking car this year. But we got those guys on track. We've got both Mercedes and Norris on track right now. Norris is trying to get their first laps in, see if they can beat their teammate that currently just over half a tenth ahead of Verstappen, so putting the pace on right now, although Verstappen's very close. Russell, however, 2.82 away from Piastri, so there is a fair bit of a gap right there with the rest of the field. They are on different tyres. Fresh tyres for Piastri. We've got used mediums for Verstappen and Russell, so Piastri's got to try and put some better times in a little bit later on. Of course, they're not on track at the moment, so it's a bit different. Norris goes around again, and they haven't set the lap, a timed lap yet. So they're going to have to do another one so we can actually see their pace. But it looks like the Mercedes are going pretty slowly on track. We haven't even mentioned Franco Colapinto, who makes their debut this weekend. It is a phenomenal opportunity and a European circuit that the juniors will have raced on. So that's a good one, a good scenario to be in for the Argentine driver. But the track has changed a bit. The corners are a little bit wider, I believe. I haven't seen the track myself on the TV coverage, but from what I know, the track is a little bit wider. It's going to be a little bit faster, so everybody's going to be not on the back foot, but slightly a bit unaware of what's going on. So in that regard, it helps Franco a little bit, but of course then they need to try and adapt to these conditions as well. These track changes as well, so it's going to be an interesting one. We've got a lot of people out on track right now. The only ones that we've not got on track is Bottas. We've got Albon in the pit lane. We've got Magnussen, Perez, Verstappen and Piastri, and Norris in the meantime has just gone and set a lap time that is exactly 1/10 in front of their teammate right now on another fresh set of softs for the McLaren. So they're really putting those times in already. I assume they're going to use that soft tyre throughout the session for a little bit more. But we've now got both Astons out. We've got Hulkenberg and both RBs. We continue to have the Alpines, who are very close together with one another on track right now. And we've got Zhou. I think I don't know if I already said Zhou. We've got Zhou out on track as well. And we had Bottas, who went fairly quick in FP1, I think it was. So they're trying to hope for some kind of light at the tunnel and look for some pace this weekend. Whether that'll be the case, I don't quite know.
Sorry, Colapinto coming out with the second Lesbo, touching the gravel a little bit there. Nearly spinning out, but he managed to keep it. He's 14th at the moment. I think he's just trying to do some longer runs. I think George Russell coming for the second Lesmo as well, doing the exact same thing, losing the back end, but doesn't go into the gravel. So obviously the track has been resurfaced a lot this year, and so it's gonna feel weird to drive, that's for sure. So the driver's gonna have to get used to the grip limits. And the turn one, we can see Russell locking a front tyre. That's just a replay, but you can tell that the track has changed quite a bit. Ascari now is much more flat, and it looks a lot more flat as well. In terms of you can go faster and it's flatter, so it's going to be a challenge to get through there. But we've seen in the previous practice sessions that you can really send it through there. So everyone's just trying to get used to the track now, and I'm sure that won't be an issue come qualifying.
For sure. It's all testing. Sorry, I just had a few technical difficulties that I was trying to sort out there. I do apologise. We're going to continue to have those difficulties as I quickly sort things out, but it won't be a big deal, and I will be able to get back to normal runnings very, very quickly. And we are once again back. Lovely stuff. Perfect. So currently Russell sets the pace as Sainz to P2. So maybe the votes that we saw earlier on are not correct, because McLaren should be on top, but they're not too far away. Ferrari, Zingy, do you think they can get a 1-2?
Okay, well, actually, hear me out for a minute, right? Because Charles Leclerc is an exceptional driver. We've always known this. Obviously, he can have a bit of nervousness under pressure and he can make mistakes. But around Monza, a track that he's won at before, and a car that is competitive enough, what it looks like anyway, to stay within that top six this weekend in comparison to the Netherlands when they were miles off. I anyone out of the top eight can win. Even like Perez could win even if he is not on that proper pace. So it's going to be very tricky. And if there's some safety cars and areas where you don't expect them to be, even someone from outside that top eight could win. So Monza this year is obviously changed, and but you're seeing the lap times. There's only about 2.5 tenths separating the top of seven, and then 8 tenths to Hulkenberg, who's I don't think done a competitive lap yet. So I don't know. It could be anyone at the top eight, and I think qualifying will really show who the faster cars are, which will probably be Red Bull and McLaren. But at the same time, do you ever discount Ferrari and Mercedes?
Not this season. I think more so don't discount Mercedes this season because obviously they've got the more win. No, they haven't actually got more wins. Have they got more wins? They've got 3 wins. Ferrari got 2.
Yes.
So yeah, they have got more wins, but it was kind of like Austria. It was just like, you know, they caught it. They just like got the end of it. They managed to just nab it at the very end. Whereas when Ferrari have won, sure, maybe Verstappen retired in Australia and it may have been different, but they were the clear pace setter in Monaco. Maybe McLaren were close there as well, but that wouldn't explain the pack kind of dropping away a little bit later on when Norris dropped away. But I'm probably absolutely chatting because I can't quite remember that race too well, so I do apologise. But yeah, we'll see. Mercedes, they kind of won well, but they weren't as kind of dominant as Ferrari, I guess, in that regard. I don't
Well,
know. I'm absolutely chatting.
the thing is with Mercedes, their second win in Silverstone, McLaren were clearly the fastest car. They just made some stupid strategy calls, and they messed up both drivers really, putting Lando on a soft tyre when he had a new medium and Oscar in the rain when he didn't change him over. So it again, well, you can see it two ways. It's either Mercedes done a good strategy or McLaren done a bad strategy, and obviously McLaren messed up. But Mercedes were there. They're always putting in a strategy that's just good enough. And you seen in Spa, George Russell, the one stop. They didn't think they had the pace to keep up with everyone else, so they tried something different for George Russell's car anyway, and they had a 1-2 until obviously George Russell got disqualified for the underweight car. So yeah, Mercedes are very good with these strategies over these last few races that we have seen. So it, yeah, I think both wins from both teams are justified, but I think overall Mercedes will have that faster car, only by a couple hundreds. But I think if I am to put a bet on someone, it would be Mercedes.
Here we go. We're just going to quickly go for some technical difficulty breaks. We'll be back in a few moments' time. We'll see you in about 2 minutes. There we go. We're all good, and we are back. More live timing. We probably didn't actually need to go to the intermission there, but just to show why we weren't talking, I guess it's useful. But right now, has much changed on the screen? My memory isn't good enough to really remember that. But we have a few people going in and a few people going out. The Ferraris are now both back in the pit lane. Russell's on his way out for another run on a used set of mediums here. It's actually a used set of soft tyres for Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, but that might have just updated since they went into the pit lane. Actually, we have got Hamilton out on track still, I believe, if that's the case.
Goodness me, Oscar Piastri coming at the second race. Well, again, he went right into the gravel with both tyres. Like half the car was almost in the gravel there, and yeah, he managed to keep it. And he's still only a tenth off Leclerc's time, so he somehow kept the throttle in, and he's still pushing on for this lap. But goodness, he nearly crashed it there. So Oscar maybe pushing a bit too hard with lower grip conditions, and he nearly went into the wall there. But thankfully for himself, he's okay, and it looks as though he's still pushing on like nothing ever happened.
Lovely. Lovely. Well, not lovely, but good to see that you can just keep going and it's not a bigger issue.
And he improved as well.
Yeah, only 2 tenths down. That's absolutely incredible. How the hell did that happen? Right, so they've got a lot more pace. Albon absolutely cooking in the first sector right now. Who led him?
He's going to slipstream though.
Yeah, well, the game's the game, isn't it? It's Monza. You gotta take things when you can. We'll see what lap time they can set. Of course, they got disqualified at the end of the Dutch Grand Prix qualifying for too much volume on the floor. If I can't quite remember.
Yeah, it was a couple millimeters.
Yeah, so they got a bit of a mistake there. They made some modifications, and then they got a new driver in, and now they're back on track. So DRS. Across the line, what's it going to be? It's going to be a 20.596, so they do go fastest, and that is, well, hold on, it looks very good for Williams. It doesn't look good for Colapinto, because now he's got to try and compete with that lap time. Of course, they've got to make sure that they just look at the details and see that there was a bit of a slipstream. Maybe Colapinto can get that as well and maybe replicate a similar time. But we'll see. I assume they're probably going to be very, very relaxed on his performance this weekend. I don't know why they would put too much pressure. It's his first ever time is it his first ever time in the F1 car? I think it is.
No.
Is it not?
He was running in Silverstone, remember?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, so it's not his first time, but it is his first Grand Prix weekend and his first FP3 session at least. I just have a quick thing, unless you've got something else that you want to mention, Zingy. Just a little conversation point. I heard someone mention something very interesting. Now, I don't know, well, it probably isn't possible, and I don't know the reason why they don't do this, but putting junior drivers or other drivers instead of FP1, why don't they do it in FP2? Because then overnight, then there can be work done on the car if there's a crash instead of FP1. The difficulty is obviously cars push in the later sessions, so it's a little bit harder to kind of compare, so I guess that's why they maybe do FP1. But would you say that FP2 could be possible, because then teams have kind of less risk of missing out on a Q2 session, or is it almost like a deterrent for a junior driver or a driver that's not in an F1 car right now to kind of not make such mistakes?
Well, I don't actually know the answer to this, but I presume FP1 obviously being the first session, everyone's just trying to get used to the track and stuff like that, and it gives young drivers a chance just to go out there the first laps of the weekend, have no pressure on them, and just push however much they want. Of course, we've seen mistakes in Parabolica with Kimi, but I think it's just FP1 because it's the first weekend of the session, and they want to just like I couldn't actually tell you properly, but I'd imagine because it's the first session, they allow these drivers to do so. Because if it was FP2, it would be your normal driver, George Russell, then it would be Kimi, and then it would be George Russell, or it would be, Max Verstappen, Isaac Hadjar, and then Max Verstappen again. And it's because it's FP1, you can put that young driver in, and then your main driver has two uninterrupted sessions. Granted, nothing happens to them throughout the weekend. So I think it's just something to do with timing and how stuff works. But I'm not entirely sure how it works. I'd have to read up on it. But I think there's some reason that it might work. It might be
That makes
be the
sense.
case.
That is a very good point, and that makes complete sense. So, ignore what I said, and that one's done. So fair enough. Well said, Zingy. Now we just saw Max Verstappen also have a moment on the exit of the second Lesmo. Is that a sign of this circuit having its changes and making it very difficult for the drivers to understand? Are they just used to the old kind of layout? The curbs are very different. It looks like they're almost easier to exploit, maybe, but it just, you've got a massive gravel trap on the exit, so you've got to be very careful. I don't know if they can go far enough over the curb to actually be invalidated before reaching the gravel. So, yeah, I guess we'll see that over the weekend, especially over quali, in a few moments' time. Is it turn 1 and 2 are a lot more open, and so are 3 and 4 and 5, I think?
Yeah, they did make some big changes to that. I seen some helicopter shots earlier on, and it looked much wider. I think, don't take me up on this, but I believe that the first two corners are a bit slower, although wider, to promote more overtaking. Obviously, they were very slow in the first place, but if you make them slower and you make them much wider, you can definitely fit two cars through one. We won't have any instance like in previous years, hopefully. And so I believe that, yeah, it's just to promote better racing, and same with 4 and 5, obviously having that wider chicane as well will allow more people to have their own chances to make moves, because Monza it's very difficult to do so, because we're having cars that have little to no downforce on the front and rear, so the DRS doesn't do anything, and neither the slipstream. So I think it's just to promote overtaking and people being able to make not more rash moves, but just be more brave under braking, knowing that there's a lot more space to run wide as well. So I think, yes, it's just for overtaking sakes, and I think they are just slower. So.
And so will that mean overtaking is easier, or is it going to mean that people try and go for more opportunities, but other drivers, say a defending driver, is just going to go, well, it's the same circuit, so I'm just going to turn in? Maybe it could create confusion over actual overtaking opportunities. Just looking at the onboard right now, it's very, very wide. That first chicane, that is absolutely incredible. Right now, Lewis Hamilton out on circuit. I mean, both Mercedes are once again out on circuit right now. I think everyone on track at all, even if they're out or in, they're currently set to be on used tyres right now. The Lesmos, I believe, are also more open, but I think is Parabolica the only corner that hasn't changed?
Yeah, obviously two Lesmos are much wider now with those curbs and the Scari, so it's very, you can take it with a lot more speed because of the flat curbs. You can just ride over them without any consequences. You can see Hamilton running right up to the edge, not touching the gravel, and he's doing well there. And coming into Parabolica, you will see that I think there's little to no change. I think there might be a bit more gravel before the wall, which would make sense, of course. And on the entry, I think that little rumble strip has also been added. But yeah, the gravel's been brought in a little bit more, and apart from that, there's not been many changes to the last corner. So yeah, that's the only corner on the track that hasn't been changed. So it's good to see that they keep some originality, but we can obviously understand why there has been changes elsewhere, as Carlos Sainz overtakes Albon and Charles Leclerc P2, just a couple hundreds ahead of him as well. So Ferrari showing their pace with 20 minutes to go, but is that just practice-free doing practice-free things?
It might be practice-free doing practice-free things. I think they are just kind of building up a little bit more and waiting for the later stages, which we're getting to now. So in a few minutes' time, I think a lot of teams are also going to start pushing. Hamilton's in, Russell will probably be brought in at some point soon as well. And then they will go out again for a final time. So maybe the Ferraris are going out a little bit too early here. Or are they just trying to look for a bit of a clearer track? Because they kind of preempted maybe this would be the minutes where people go in into the pit lane at the moment. Also, just quickly seeing the circuit right now, Zingy, they've actually got more gravel traps in the middle of the kind of chicane section, so if you cut it, you do go over the gravel traps. Would that put damage on some cars and maybe mix up the field? Because if you get forced off, like, and it's not your fault, then you're going to get punished, possibly. It's not meant to do that, but it could possibly do that. So we could see some controversial moments happen this weekend, which wouldn't be ideal. We've got quite a few people in the pit lane right now, but Russell stays out, interestingly.
Yeah, the chicanes are kind of like a double-edged sword in a way, because you're like, well, if a driver goes off, locks up, like Sergio Perez did do just there, demonstrating that the gravel traps do work, it's going to be tricky because you need to find a balance between punishing drivers for one mistake, but not ruining the rest of the race. And I think that little gravel trap that they got there will work quite well. Although, if you go over it a few times, you might then, yes, get some damage. I think the point is, you go over it once, you're like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that again, and you will be more careful not to do so. So I think your thinking is correct in a way, but I also think that it's not enough gravel to warrant any damage unless you were to go over like 3-4 times, which these drivers, I'd imagine, wouldn't do.
Fair enough. Yep, well said. Looking at the current top two, it is currently the Tifosi's dream right now. 1/10 ahead of his teammate though, Carlos Sainz, looking to be possibly the faster driver. It's probably too early to say. We've now got virtually no one out on track. We've got Perez, Russell, and Gasly going very, very slowly. That's it. Russell, Perez out on circuit. Watch out, something could happen. But Russell's still staying out, so doing a bit of a longer run on this medium tyre. It was used from earlier on. Currently 15 laps in the session, I believe. Yeah, that's been literally it. So currently 14 laps on this tyre right now. So yeah, on this stint right now. So they are putting those longer laps in. Leclerc has set 11 laps on their previous tyre. I don't know what tyre they've come out on right now, but both Ferraris immediately coming back out again. So
Look at soft.
yeah. So they're going to be going for their quali runs, I assume, right now. Maybe trying to get a bit earlier because, you know, if other cars start going for their quali runs, then someone might be putting it into the wall, and they might not get that pace that or that data that they need. And around Monza, where the margins are going to be so fine, you do want to get some in at least, if you can't, at the peak performance of the circuit. We'll see how that goes, but I know a lot of drivers will be coming out of the pit lane very, very soon to do so. Colapinto also on their way out to try and beat their teammates' current lap time, which should be very difficult to do so. But Colapinto's actually gone out on fresh soft tyres.
Yeah, he'll probably be doing a qualifying run. His teammate in P3, and that makes me think that these Ferraris are going to go out trying to get a lap without slipstream, which might sound counterintuitive, but if you want to see your raw pace without any aids of slipstream or any other car helping you or, you know, hindering you, it's really good to get out just a few minutes before. Yes, the track will rubber up a little bit and you'll lose a few hundreds, but I think Ferrari are smart enough that they'll be, well, yeah, we can probably gain a few hundreds, if not a tenth here and there. So it's good thinking for them. I think the first Ferrari, I think that's Carlos Sainz, is going to try and just stay away from Charles, and so we see Williams actually overtaking, so that might interrupt their plans. I think that was Colapinto just trying to find some free space. Carlos Sainz will start his lap now. Yeah, I think they just want to see what their pace is on the soft tyres. And it looks as though they're used tyres as well, so maybe it's just race pace on that soft that we don't really see being used often, do we? Or am I thinking of something else?
Not so much, and it is an interesting one, but it's Monza. There's a lot of straight lines, so, you know, as long as they keep taking care of the rear throughout a race, they might be able to make those tyres work. It's possible. At least that's going for the F1 knowledge side of things, which you really shouldn't go off these days, but although this current game has a hard tyre meta, which is ridiculous. Anyway, Colapinto, about to make himself one of the most hated drivers by Ferrari, as he kind of doesn't really obey by the gentleman's rule of not overtaking in the third sector. Obviously it's practice, not qualifying, so I'm sure they won't be doing that. Around this circuit though, the gentleman's rule of not overtaking in the final sector is kind of just probably thrown out the window, to be honest. So yeah, we'll see how that one goes. Anyway, both Ferraris are out right now. Sainz has complete clean air, but doesn't go purple in any sectors. They don't improve. They do go purple at the end of the sector. Did they improve on that lap time? No, they didn't. Charles Leclerc, however, in the middle sector goes purple. Are they going to beat their teammate in that final sector as well? They do, and they go pole fastest by 0.237 seconds, which gets a bit of a roar from the crowd. But yeah, they've still got a lot of time in this session. So is that going to be them done? Are they just going to go back into the pit lane now?
That was on 10 lap old tyres as well, I think. Unless it was new, unless you can see, I don't know if it was laps completed in the session or laps completed on the tyre. You'll be able to tell me because I don't have that data, but either way, that's very impressive from Leclerc to get closer to the 19s with a really good few corners there. So yeah, Alex Albon still fastest in the first sector. That was due to the massive slipstream he got off of another driver. Also to note, Colapinto only 3/10 off without, I assume anyway, without much slipstream. He was behind Leclerc by a few seconds, so he would have got something, but only 3/10 off your teammate in your, third session? Fourth session? That's very impressive.
It's pretty good. It is pretty good. And he also went and did a Giga Chad move and blocked another car who's about to start their lap and started his lap instead. So he's definitely bringing up the sponsors for the team, which is great. That's a car going off. That's the Williams of, that will be Colapinto again.
For goodness sake.
Oh, that was even
saying a good
closer.
lap, he's made a mistake.
That was Ricardo who was moving out the way of Norris, but that was absolutely diabolical positioning for Ricardo there. Sorry, carry on, Zingy.
Yeah, this guy goes to set a good lap and then he bends it into the wall. You know what? It happens sometimes. He's trying to prove himself. He set a good lap. Maybe just try to get out of the way. Maybe overcommitted and just went onto the grass a little bit. I don't think he pushed for a second lap. It's Norris. Ooh.
Interesting.
Norris in the last sector lost him on Charles Leclerc. 300s down, but he's still there. He's still up there. A few hundreds. He can definitely find that within a lap, and Charles Leclerc can definitely find a few hundreds in his lap. So can everyone. So
he can, but the age of the tyre for Carlos Sainz and Leclerc. So Carlos Sainz 12 lap old soft tyres. He set that lap time on, and Leclerc was on 14 lap old soft tyres, whereas Lando is on fresh tyres right there. Fastest middle sector by a nice little amount, but that's yeah, a small gap, but still on a fresh tyre. Maybe they had an issue, I'm not sure, but we'll see. Would Leclerc have got a distant toe from Colapinto? Maybe, I don't quite know, but
no,
yeah, it's difficult.
I don't think so. I think he backed off enough. Plus, even if it was a distant toe, it would only be a 10 for 2, so it's still very impressive. He's managed to keep the pace up in the last sector, which Lando was down on. But see, Yuki Tsunoda only 300s off Leclerc in the first sector. So, it's all very tight, yeah, of course. I don't really know what to say. There's so many cars that are looking competitive, and of course coming to qualifying, that will all change. But you can see an incident between Piastri, Leclerc and Ricciardo for impeding. I think that will be on Norris, will it not?
It might be those cars are the ones involved, so it might be that maybe Piastri or Ricciardo was impeded by Leclerc and Piastri. Ricciardo, would he have been out before Piastri, who's just set a lap time, and maybe on his out lap, whereas Leclerc was on his in lap. That would be my bet. Maybe it's Ricciardo that impeded Piastri, I don't quite know, but yeah, Piastri goes and sets a time just better than his teammate right there. So the top three are incredibly close. There's a little bit of a gap between Sainz, but not really too much. So we'll see how that one goes. But yeah, a few people coming in now, and I really do think we'll see some very fast times being clocked very soon. But I don't know what to say. Is this the impede? Right, okay. That's, yeah. So it will be Piastri that was impeded by Leclerc, and it will be Ricciardo as well. So, yeah, they're going to be a bit frustrated. I mean, Ricciardo wasn't necessarily doing anything wrong. In that scenario, I don't know. What do you think about that one, Zingy?
I don't think anyone had really anything to do wrong there. Sure, of course, maybe. Oh!
Right, okay. Interesting.
Um,
Okay, so we're just live pictures, or yeah, not live pictures, replay pictures. Right now, we've got an interesting scenario going on. A few on-track arguments. Ricardo didn't really do anything. I don't know. I feel like it might have been a bit of an overreaction right there from Piastri, and not only once but twice on the same kind of in-lap. So. Well, no, sorry, cooldown lap, which is an interesting one. Not something that you'd expect from Oscar Piastri.
well, the most emotion he's ever showed on an F1 track.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a strange sight to see. Very, very strange. But hopefully they can calm down as they're on their way out of the pit lane again. Hulkenberg is going to be very, very scared if he's been made aware of the situation because he's got an angry Piastri right behind him. Maybe Piastri's about to go and set a lap time that's half a second quicker in front of everyone else.
George Russell set the pace. Hamilton then goes a tenth ahead of him. What tyres were they on? I'd assume they were more fresh than the Ferraris.
Fresh softs, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so I think Norris probably would have, could have, should have improved on that lap time that he did set. He's P5 at the moment. Piastri, the most hated man probably in Monza right now, P4. And the two Mercedes, although on fresh tyres, showing good pace, but if the Ferraris are on used tyres and only a couple tens off, I don't see why they can't challenge. And we do, Aaron. We do need to get our qualifying predictions in, don't we?
We do. Let's say 5 minutes. 5 minutes is our deadline. We need to think about what we're doing now, or what everyone's doing now. And in 5 minutes, that's when we make those calls. Qualifying predictions will be very, very interesting. I don't think we got any of them right last time around. We got, what was it, like 1 or 2 drivers correct in the top 3?
Hamilton just messed us up.
Yeah, Hamilton completely messed that one up. So, yeah, we got a few people in the top 3, just not the quite correct order. But, oh well, it happens, and it is going to happen, and it's going to be very difficult to predict this qualifying session as well, which will be later on, about 3 o'clock BST, or CEST, I think it's 4 o'clock, unless I got that wrong, and it's 2 o'clock for BST, but I think it's 3 o'clock. Anyway, we've got a few cars out on track right now, a lot of cars out on track right now. The only cars that we don't have out on track is Albon and Perez. Everyone else is looking to set some good lap times, as Perez is on their way out of the circuit as well. So, it is that Sonoda as Ricciardo also comes in. So people are starting to come back in, but it's going to get very, very difficult as we've got Russell to Verstappen with Bottas, Shaw and Hamilton in between. A lot of traffic going on right now as Hamilton and Verstappen are switching positions in Ascari, mid-corner. So we might get a bit of a note on that very soon. That is a Ferrari getting a tow right there from another car as Piastri goes purple in the first sector.
Yeah, Charles Leclerc getting that tow off of Ocon. Piastri pushing through the second decimal. Let's see, he does not touch the gravel this time. And there's not a Charles Leclerc that he can push off into the grass either, so he'll be pushing on now, getting a bit of a slipstream from those 2 cars ahead. Maybe some slight slipstream as well. He's a tenth and a half down. He didn't look too committed on the throttle there, going a bit wide. He just looked very nervous there coming to Ascari. It's not going to be the fastest lap time, I don't think. It was very poor. And coming into Parabolic, and now, let's see, will he get the car turned in nicely? It does look like it initially bites a bit wide on exit than he would have wanted, bringing it back to the inside to minimise the track distance. And yeah, he's into the pits. The Ascari really messed him up there. he was just struggling to get the car bit in, and the traction just wasn't there for him. So maybe either pushing a bit too hard, or the car just not gripping up properly. Who
Yeah,
knows?
bringing it back into the pit lane. I did actually want to mention earlier on, I'm very surprised at how, although it hasn't changed, how short that pit lane entry is. But I don't mean necessarily short for braking. I mean how late you can call it to the right, because you don't need to follow a line until the last second, really. So that's going to be very interesting. Might be a little bit difficult. That is, actually having that issue as they were not able to go too much faster, if at all. I can't quite remember. But we saw Hulkenberg go fastest in the first sector. In the last sector, they did a PB, but as they said before the weekend, they will struggle in that middle sector, which they did so. And only P10, despite being so quick in that first sector.
Yeah. Perez making a bit of a slide through the first corner. He's 15th at the moment, but yeah, I think a lot of drivers are complaining. Russell was complaining about traction and just how the car felt. Verstappen about medium speed corners, so probably just the middle sector. And Perez, I think he's on a new set of tyres as he again goes over the gravel trap, demonstrating the new features of this track. So I think Perez is just struggling again with whatever issues he is having. I don't know what tyres he is on. He's on softs, but I don't know how old they are.
They
It looks as though
will be...
Stroll's had a bit of an incident with redirection, so he'll probably get a fine of some sort. And look at that, the second lesson you can just see them out of gravel offline. So they may
Yeah,
have to
I
clean
noticed that
before
when
going.
Piastri and Leclerc had their little scuffle at the exit there was a lot of gravel. I don't know who would have done that, but it is a fresh soft tyre for Perez right now. We've got a lot of people getting very confused and trying to set up their final runs. So we'll see how that goes. It is turn 4 incident involving Perez failing to follow race director's instructions on the escape road. So this is going to be interesting, and they ride over the gravel that we were talking about earlier on, and probably won't get any damage from that, but you know, it's kind of going to be like sandpaper. It's going to grind things down a little bit. You really don't want to do it if you can avoid it. That is a hell of a helmet right there for Lance Stroll, who also goes off the circuit. And are they going to get noted as well for not following? They do. They were actually noted first before Perez for this escape road instructions. I mean, you've got so much speed. How can you follow a different bollard? I don't know. Maybe I'm being too lenient. And as long as they follow instructions for the race, I think they shouldn't really need to worry about that too much.
I think it's very unreasonable when you're halfway through the corner, you've snapped the car, and it's went away from you, that you have to turn really sharply to the right and follow a little string of bollards and roads that is miles away from where you lost the car. I think if you've locked the car into the corner and you're definitely not making it, then yes. Or if you're side by side with a driver like Lewis Hamilton was with Charles Leclerc, and you've made a bit of a mistake in touching the grass, locked the tyre, then I expect you to go around the bollard in the racing conditions, because Charles Leclerc arguably, I'd say, done nothing wrong, just about close racing. But yeah, I don't understand when these guys are losing the car halfway through the corner, expect them to go all the way to the bollard and around it. I think that's very stupid from the FIA.
It is very, very difficult to do as a driver. Now, I just realised we've passed the 5-minute mark, Zingy, so predictions in. I reckon it's going to be Hamilton, Leclerc, Russell.
I think it's going to be Hamilton, Russell, Leclerc.
Okay.
Mercedes just look like they had a qualifying car, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. And, well,
We said that last time.
McLaren, they've just not been considered in that one. So, yeah, very, very surprised there. But we'll see what Mercedes can do. We've got a few minutes on the clock because everyone is starting to go faster. Colapinto and Albon's lap times are 8th and 9th at the moment. But there is still a big gap, 3 tenths between the two drivers right there.
Yeah, Are you talking about Albon and Colapinto again?
Yeah, Albon and Colapinto. The gap is interesting. There's a lot of gravel once again on the exit of turn 7.
Yeah, going back to the Colapinto play, I don't think you can compare lap times. That slipstream Albon got was absolutely deadly in the first sector, and it was really quick. But yeah, I think for the young Argentinian, who's now the youngest on the grid actually, Oscar Piastri is now very old, of course.
Old and
I
grumpy.
think old and grumpy. There you go. Maybe that's why he's been so upset with Charles Leclerc. But yeah, I think Colapinto has nothing to worry about. He's doing great for our first practice session. 3 tenths off. Would Sargent have been 3 tenths off? I think in practice he would have been, if not a little bit closer. But when it comes to that qualifying in that race, that's when Sargent really feels the pressure, drops off. And yeah, it is a shame to see him go. I know, Aaron. It wasn't your favourite driver, but you did kind of have a bit
I
of sympathy
supported
for
him because he did have good results as a junior driver and arguably had a bit of a maybe better resume as he was very close to Piastri in his junior times. But it is what it is. He was promoted too early. And yeah, nothing you can do about it, unfortunately. Hopefully they can find success elsewhere. In motorsport somewhere else, we've got a presumed prediction: Russell, Norris, Leclerc for qualifying. So we'll see if that's right for them instead, with the McLarens being right up there. They've got a good mix of Mercedes, McLaren and Ferrari right now. We've got only less than a minute left on the clock right now for the session, and everyone is super bunched up on the circuit right now. I reckon we're going to get quite a few people impeded here.
There's going to be a lot of argument, a lot of shouting, a lot of swearing, no doubt from some drivers.
And a lot of investigating after the session as well.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, Max Verstappen touching the gravel with rear left on exit, pushing the limits. You can see him flinging the car through first Lesmo very nicely there. And second Lesmo, he needs to make sure not to run wide. Oh, he's right up to the limit. And he wasn't out of track limits, so I think the gravel is like what the FIA are going to determine as track limits, because we see Max Verstappen go fully over that curb. He's now 3 tenths down though, so that gravel must have really, really hampered his time. But even without that, I mean, Red Bull haven't looked lively. Perez P17, a bit more to be expected, but Max Verstappen, one of the best drivers on the grid right now, I'd say, if not the best. It looks as though he just can't get in tune with that car. They look good in the first sector, the second sector not so, and in third, he did set purple, so maybe they have went really low with the downforce.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I believe part Fermi is only for quali, so they can make some changes,
Yes.
right? But I'm really surprised at how the performance of the car has changed so drastically in the last kind of race or so. I guess they're trying to do different things with it to extract the performance, and that's what's happening. But now the checkered flag is out. A lot of people have finished their session. We've got Leclerc going for one final run. What can they get done in this session? It's going to be a P3 for them, so they stay where they were, I believe, if that's correct. I was looking at two different screens at the same time and I completely messed it up. But Hamilton right now looking to be fastest. Russell was not able to beat their teammate. We've got Colapinto yet to finish. We've got Tsunoda and Magnussen. Will they be able to get to the top 3? I'm not gonna be too hopeful, but yeah, they'll probably stay near enough where they are. Colapinto crosses the line, Magnussen crosses the line, and Tsunoda will be the next one to do so.
Max Verstappen on the way in to the second chicane, you can just see him having to take a two or three stabs at the wheel there and on exit. Of course, because his entry is compromised, he did make a bit of a mistake on exit. So, although Max likes a pointy car and that looks like it's what he's got, it looks as though he's struggling. Maybe there's some wind in the air that we don't know about, maybe some crosswind, but Verstappen just doesn't look good. It's been these last few races, and apart from Zandvoort, his home race where he done the best he probably could for the car he had, when it's Ferrari's home turf, it looks as though they've got a good car. And although it's a Mercedes 1-2 in qualifying, you must remember how old those Ferrari tyres were.
Yeah, for sure. And I can't quite remember what tyre the lap time was set on for the Mercedes. I believe it was softs, but they were just out on that medium, so getting some final runs on a medium tyre, which is an interesting one. But fair enough. That is the session done, and we will see you in a few hours' time for the qualifying session. Make sure you get your predictions in. We'll send out a poll in a bit. That is a car stopped on track before we go. That is Magnussen. So the Ferrari engine may be having an issue, or maybe just a Haas car having an issue quite early on right now. No shifting, he says. What they say.
I don't. He's either stopped because he's got no fuel in the car, but I don't think you get penalised for that in practice. It looks as though the car's just completely switched off. No engine revs. And yeah, that's very weird. I have no idea what's going on there. Maybe it's been like a kill switch kind of thing, or he's had to do, or maybe the engine's just completely just died on itself. I don't really know. Very weird end to the FP3 session, and not a good look for Haas, who were doing decently those last few races, but they seem to have fallen off once again, especially with Magnussen and Zandvoort when he didn't show much pace. So yeah, it looks as though they're going to have a bit of an issue, and I hope qualifying is at 4 o'clock our time. It'll be 5 o'clock for them, so they'll have about 4 hours or so to look at the issues, evaluate it, and see what they can do. So it would be good to see Magnussen back on track, and I think he will be. But as we're about to end the stream, of course, that happens. Very interesting. So yeah, that's some end to FP3, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. Magnussen not very happy because he's been told it's safe to get out the car and then it's not. So yeah, that's not ideal, but everyone will go back into the pit lane, and then we'll see what happens there. Right now it says on our timing screen that Hamilton's gone again and Colapinto's gone again, so I don't know if they're allowed to do 2 more laps. But anyway, we will see you in a few hours time for the qualifying session. Join us then. It will be a great one for sure. Don't miss it. We'll see you then. Make sure you join the LSI Racing League, and in a bit. Bye bye.